Patience for the impatient, impatience for those who wait. A white bed and a color TV, a touch me not, tone in your voice, a handshake, touch, 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 until the love has gone. Lucky you with a room full of blue white outfits round the clock. Lucy seems nervous today. Break down number 4. Breakfast in the trash. No one mentioned the damage done. Everyone sleeps well tonight. That person with a different idea won't live at home. Love sick for extra tension. I thought I heard you mention flowers on a holiday. Love sick for an extra bleed, an extra takes our part. Eyes that offer, eyes that see secret. AM conversation is forgotten. Afternoon, love sick for midnight.
Welcome to another edition of the Willie Bragg Show. I'm your host, Willie Bragg. Was going to live stream last night at 10 o'clock. Did not. It's funny. I'll come up here apologizing why I did not live stream the day before, what have you. But there's always an explanation. Not an excuse, but an explanation. Yesterday, had to go to the doctor's office, take care of some shit. Had to go to the car dealer. Not sure yet, but I may be getting a new car. I'm not sure right now. So we'll see what happens in that regard. So henceforth, why I postponed the video from last night at 10 o'clock to right now and had it scheduled at 8 o'clock, but I was getting up kind of late, and here I am. So, hey, Warren, how are you doing today? Happy Wednesday to you, and happy Wednesday to CBC Voter. How are you doing? Otherwise, I'm doing well. I'm just trying to get my bearings together, have a show planned for Friday. So, y'all seeing it on the YouTube channel there and everything. And so anyway, so today I'm going to discuss going to discuss the significance of this battle feud between Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin. And here's the thing about that little battle that's going on between those two. Why would a leftist commentator like myself worry about what two right-wing people are doing amongst themselves? Well, I look at it this way. As a very small, tiny voice on the online left, I look at the online left, how it fractured since the days of the Bernie campaign, 2016, and even more so in the 2020 campaign, its aftermath, especially after forced to vote. How it just fractured apart, a lot of egos on all sides and everything, and feuding all around, and just a lot of ego, a lot of a lot of everybody's in this camp and this camp and this camp and this camp. And I admit that for a while I was like going on this camp, this camp, this camp, and this camp, just choosing a side or what have you. And I look at it this way. I'm myself. I am my own camp, and I think that the left should just look forward and try to pick up the pieces and try to do what we can to, obviously defeat the right, but obviously bring forth our agenda, and just to basically move beyond liberalism, and move towards something that's better, obviously, and that's where we come in. I don't mean just stale ass progressivism, but move to something more revolutionary, and in that regard, in a more revolutionary direction. You could define that in many different ways. I say non-violent direct action, that sort of thing. But anyway, suffice to say, I look at the right, and MAGA is fracturing. If you look at the social media influencers on the right, they are fracturing as hell. I mean, they're just like sniping at each other, and it's delicious to watch, And while they're sniping at each other, I'm going to say this: you don't have to say, well, this particular person is by default better than the other person, or what have you. You're not necessarily saying that, but you could just say that maybe on a few positions that they are, certainly not the asshole that the other would be, if that makes any sense. And so that's basically where I'm coming from. So there is a feud going on between in the MAGA movement between one strong voice on the online right, if you will, although he had a strong footing in the mainstream media for years, and another one whose influence is evaporating like crazy. And obviously the strong voice out there is Tucker Carlson. Now, my position on Tucker Carlson is I'm not a fan. Don't like Tucker Carlson. There's a lot of things about Tucker Carlson that I don't like. And while I don't like Tucker Carlson, is he the worst voice out there? I will say objectively, he's not the worst voice, but I mean, I don't like him for the basic reasons I don't like most conservative voices out there. He's talking a game about populism and everything. And that should be a lesson when you listen to Donald Trump's 2016. And even occasionally today, he will use the populist talk. When it comes to actual policy, it's still stale-ass Reaganomics at the end of the day, or Reaganomics on steroids, as with this big, beautiful bill that passed and all of that, this past year and all. So I'm a little bit dubious in the United States of what they call right-wing populism. Right-wing populism, usually when it manifests, it manifests as something ugly. Unlike in Europe, maybe in Europe, some countries, a populist right will promise you some workers' protections and protections of public services, but with some nasty politics that comes on the side too, unfortunately. So, but here's the thing, with regard to Tucker Carlson, as I said, there is a certain bit of charisma that he may have that appeals to some of the younger folks and all of that. And it doesn't come across as hateful as someone like Mark Levin or Jesse Kelly or something in his tone compared to the others. Again, not defending, just explaining. But then you got Mark Levin, which nails on a chalkboard sounds musical compared to his nasally ass voice. If you never heard Mark Levin's voice, you're going to hear him in a moment. But if you never heard his voice, his voice is absolutely hideous. And he is claiming to be MAGA, America first, and all this. Now, when it comes to this whole America first business and all of that, this is where the whole Trumpism and everything. He comes across as me being more Trump than anybody that has ever existed. But he was a never Trumper in 2016. Now I'm going to explain what I mean by a never Trumper. Yeah, y'all know what a never Trumper basically is. A never Trumper in 2016, especially, was usually a Republican who was against Trump. Now, in a lot of ways, there were a lot of Republicans who did not vote for Trump in 2016 that did not vote for Trump because they thought he was too right-wing. And I would say maybe there was most Republicans that did not vote for Trump in 2016 rejected him because they thought they viewed him as too right-wing. Granted, that would be the truth. But there were a section of never Trumpers that rejected Trump wholeheartedly and would not have anything to do with Trump. They didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. They didn't vote for Green Party. They didn't vote for anything even remotely left. They rejected Donald Trump because they thought, get this, drums rolling. They thought that Donald Trump was too progressive. They thought that Donald Trump was too liberal. Some even thought that Donald Trump was a plant. Well, he was kind of a plant. I had my little conspiracy theory about Trump, and I'll share that in a moment. Some people thought that Trump was a plant by liberals to subvert the Republicans from within and everything, because at one time Donald Trump was I wouldn't say he was a left winger, but he had some liberal politics. Donald Trump one time favored single payer health care. Donald Trump one time he favored some moderate gun control measures. At one time, Donald Trump, at one time he was cool with LGBTQ people. There were things, and he claimed, I'm going to take him at his word, he claimed that he was against the Iraq War in 2002, 2003, and all this sort of thing. That he was, I even heard that, I knew he was supportive of Hillary Clinton in 2008 for president in the primaries, and I even heard he voted for Barack Obama in 2008. I'm not sure if he actually did vote for Barack Obama in 2008, but that's what I heard. So Donald Trump has that kind of record in his past. And he was friends with the Clintons. And I do, in my heart of hearts, believe that Donald Trump was convinced to run for president because Bill Clinton, in a golf game with him, maybe in 2014, he was like, "Hey, Donald, my wife, she's going to run for president, and she'll be a very powerful woman, and she can make you probably more wealthy than you've ever been. She could probably make you 4 times wealthier than you are right now. And this is how you can do this. You know, I think you could run in the Republican primary and kind of cause a little bit of chaos within to make the Republican Party fight amongst themselves. They'll be very weak. And my wife Hillary, she'll be able to win this presidency. She might get you an ambassadorship into a country. You know, she can work with you. So what do you say, Don? And Donald Trump basically was working with the Clintons, in my view, to help Hillary Clinton initially to become president. That is my conspiracy theory. Everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say that, but I still stand by that. But I think along the way, I think that Donald Trump basically said, fuck the Clintons. I am going to go become president. God damn it, I'm going to become president. And that's what I think happened. Suffice to say, Mark Levin did not vote for Trump in 2016. And people like Ben Shapiro didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016. Now, I know that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney voted for Kamala Harris in 2024, but I even heard that Dick Cheney didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2016 and probably didn't vote for him in 2020. So, and I understand that Mitt Romney didn't either. And so there was a call on Never Trump movement. I'm going on and on about Never Trump. Sorry. But just trying to explain this thing about Mark Levin. So, but Mark Levin was worked in the Justice Department during the Reagan administration under Ed Meese. And then he eventually became a talk show host. And one of the most repugnant of the right-wing talk show hosts, the least charismatic of all of the talk show hosts out there. In the age of Rush Limbaugh, when it came along, he sprang up a bunch of shitty people on talk radio. But Mark Levin has to be one of the worst voices out there. I mean, he's one of the worst voices out there. And he has no charisma, no sense of humor, nothing going for him. I do not understand why this motherfucker has an audience. I mean, he's like the old man that shouts, "Get off of my lawn!" He's that guy, you know? I mean, he's basically like George Costanza from I think that's the same from Seinfeld, turned into a vile right-wing bitter old man at the age of 65. That's basically what he is, and you know, he's just a horrible individual in every way you can imagine, and so you know, and he still apologizes he does not apologize for his support for the Iraq War, for the torture in Guantanamo Bay, for the surveillance over the American population with regard to the George W. Bush, Dick Cheney administration that took place from 2001, 2009. And he is, for sure, one of the most horrific Israel first voices, even amongst the right. I mean, he is just as Israel first as they come, and there's a lot of them that were over the years. And there's been a split in that movement, and that's, you know, I'm going to talk about, you know, I'm going to touch on Tucker Carlson and Mark Levin because that's where the friction is at the moment. So there we go. I got that out of my chest. So anyway, I guess we'll start with this clip here. I think we should begin at the beginning. Yes, we should. This is from Revolutionary Change, a clip. It's Jen Perlman. It's Peter Hager. Used to be called Generational Change. Jen Perlman, as you know, ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in 2020 and 2024 in the Democratic primaries. And for some in this audience that thinks that she's still a Democrat and this is a Democratic Party adjacent show, you need to go give Revolutionary Change, which is their name now, a chance. The show has always been awesome from day one, but it's gotten better. It's gotten better. Just you know, I mean, the guests are awesome on the show. And so just and I highly recommend Revolutionary Change. It is they have great perspectives on every subject you can imagine out there. So anyway, suffice to say, this is from Revolutionary Change. Pretty recent. I forget who the guest is, but they're discussing Mark Levin. So take it away. The guest on Revolutionary Change, Peter, and of course Jen. And Peter and Jen are friends of the Willie Bragg Show, by the way. I'm proud to say.
About right.
Correct. So when Tucker did his podcast with Nick Fuentes this past week, and this is what they're all up in arms about, he specifically said, there is no one who offends me more in this country today than Christian Zionists. Says they are the worst. They are committing acts of such heresy against Christianity that they need to be called out for what they are. And it really has been kind of lost on. This is why I think Tucker is the most dangerous in a good way, because he's talking about Christian Zionists. The Jewish Zionists provide the money. The Christian Zionists are the sheep. They're the flock. Randy Fine, who sat in the Florida legislature for, I think, 10 years. I never saw him wear a yarmulke, ever. Now
because he doesn't. And that's the thing, Barack S. We don't mock the yarmulke. We mock it on him.
Oh, okay. Hold on. That was the end of the
anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-West crowd to understand something. You're going to have to come through me and millions of people just like me, and you're not going to make it.
I'll take my chances.
I was going to say, I like those odds.
He looks like a slightly older Rudy Giuliani. Anybody else thinks? Is that just me? I don't know.
No, I could see it without the bleeding hair. Yeah. Who is he? He's the guy from he's the guy from Fox, right?
When Fox News was at its peak, Megyn Kelly had her show, Tucker Carlson had his show, Sean Hannity has always had his show. But then you also have Mark Levin. And Levin has been there for a long time. He is the most miserable son of a bitch I have ever seen. I'm always skeptical of these Napoleon-like people that end up.
Rubio.
Of course. This guy is as a Israel first, anti-American piece of scumbag shit that I have ever seen. He actually makes Ben Shapiro seem appealing.
I want to talk about the dark force rising on our side. If I was talking to my father.
Okay, yeah. Basically, and I had it at the clip all the way when Randy Fine started running his mouth. So that video clip was not necessarily meant for Randy Fine. So I apologize. But anyway, I apologize for exposing you to someone just as bad as Mark Levin, Randy Fine, a member of Congress, somebody that I probably dislike as much as I dislike Marjorie Taylor Greene, for the longest time, although she's rebranded herself. But I still don't trust Marjorie Taylor Greene. I've done videos. I've done some topics on her and all that. Remember, I don't trust her. As soon as a Democrat gets it back into the White House and all of that, she'll go back to her QAnon nonsense again. So, mark my words. But Randy Fine is basically if Peter Griffin from Family Guy was a real life person and a piece of shit like Mark Levin as one human being, that would be Randy Fine, except Randy Fine makes Peter Griffin look like an anorexic. Makes Peter Griffin looks like Twiggy from the 1960s. The model for the 1960s, Twiggy. Anyway, all right. So Tucker Carlson has something to say about Mark Levin.
Mark Levin has repeatedly called for just murdering civilians, children in Gaza, because they're Amalek or whatever. They're stained by blood guilt. Prime Minister of Israel said exactly the same thing. They are guilty by virtue of how they were born. So that, by definition, includes women and children. So Mark Levin is not clever enough to keep the implications of these views to himself, and he said them repeatedly on television, just to give you a sense about how Mark Levin feels about human life and the human soul. Watch this.
And I'm supposed to, what, shed crocodile tears for what's going to happen to these people? I'm not. Maybe I'm the only one who will voice it, but I'm not. Israel has every right to throw every damn thing it has at barbarians. And if there are innocent people, quote unquote, civilians who are killed, then maybe they ought to organize to take out the government they elected. Oh, but don't hurt the civilians. Look, we have to defend ourselves. The Israelis have to defend ourselves. The free world has to defend itself. And if there's collateral damage, well, that's too bad.
That's Mark Levin in a nutshell, what you just heard right there. And again, Tucker Carlson, to his credit, was one of the first conservatives to reject the Iraq War. He was one of the early conservatives to say, hey, this is not a good idea. He was one of the first conservatives to be for same-sex marriage that had a high profile and all of that. He was one of the first conservatives to reject what George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were doing, which was, you were a Kool-Aid drinking, Rush Limbaugh, cock-sucking son of a bitch back in 2005. You cheerlead the George W. Bush administration, even though you didn't think the George W. Bush administration was conservative enough. You just waved that American flag and you just called everybody you hated a terrorist. I remember that like it was yesterday, 20 years ago. Just remember that like it literally feels like it was yesterday. I mean, it's amazing how times change. It's how time flies because I feel like the world really hasn't changed that much since 2005 in a lot of ways. Really hasn't in a lot of ways, but in some ways it has. In some ways it's still pretty much solidly the same. But thing is, Mark Levin was arguing for not just going into maintaining the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan at the time, wanted to go into Iran there's just not a country that he didn't want to invade. So and he's not changed at all. I mean, the Mark Levin still in the year 2002, 2003 mindset in that conservative movement, which makes him worse in a lot of ways than Tucker Carlson. Again, don't like Tucker Carlson, but Tucker Carlson, very, like in the last decade, eventually he was okay with the incarceration of Julian Assange. And Jimmy Dore convinced him that this was bullshit. What's happening, Julian Assange? Jimmy Dore convinced him to that Julian Assange needed to be released, so he became an advocate for Julian Assange. Good for Tucker Carlson. Mark Levin, if Mark Levin had it his way, no telling what the fate of Julian Assange would have been. He certainly wouldn't be living in Australia as a free man today. We know that for sure. And I think something much worse than being in I forgot the name of the prison in England that he was in. Gosh, I can't think of the name of the prison, but suffice to say. Anyway, Tucker Carlson changed his views on Israel. He used to be one of those conservatives that was like anybody else, supporting of Israel. It was just as an afterthought. It was an afterthought for everybody for decades to support Israel. I mean, everybody used to just support Israel in the mainstream. It was a Washington consensus. It was just a Washington, D.C. thing to do. Everybody supported Israel for the longest time. And now people are questioning it from all walks of life. People you would never think would say, hey, what Israel's doing is bullshit. It's bullshit. And now people are finally saying what Israel's doing is bullshit now, with the genocide that's taking place in Gaza and all of that, and what a piece of shit Benjamin Netanyahu is. And a lot of people talking shit about Benjamin Netanyahu, whereas at one time it was almost as if you ever had any criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu, naughty, 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 you're an anti-Semite. The very same people who would say that are the very same people that if you go and criticize, a mainstream politician like Bernie Sanders or a left-wing political figure like Noam Chomsky or Glenn Greenwald or Max Blumenthal or someone like that, or Medea Benjamin or I'm trying to think, or so someone like that. You criticize them, it's okay. You're not an anti-Semite, but you're an anti-Semite. You criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, get the fuck out of here for that bullshit, or not that I'm a fan of George Soros. I mean, I don't think George Soros is actually a leftist, but some people on the right think he is this hardcore leftist. But you're not anti-Semitic if you criticize George Soros, but you're an anti-Semite if you criticize Benjamin Netanyahu. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit, But anyway, people criticizing Israel, which they should. Candace Owens got canceled by Ben Shapiro over that at the Daily Wire, and I don't like her transphobia, and there's a lot of shit that she says that pisses me off, referring to Candace Owens, and I don't think too highly of her, but I don't think she's an anti-Semite. And I don't think that Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite either. And I've been hearing how they're anti-Semitic. Or Dave Smith, who is Jewish, apparently he's anti-Semitic. They're all anti-Semitic because they criticize what Israel's doing and all of that. And it's not even like they're sounding like. It's not even. I mean, their criticism of Israel is not even that harsh. But in these right-wing circles that's been around for a while, any criticism of Israel will make you a member of Hamas in their eyes, and so that consensus has broken through, So who defends Israel these days inside the Republican Party? Still the same old secular neocons out there. That range from moderate Republicans like Rudy Giuliani all the way to right-wing evangelical pastors like John Hagee. And in the Democratic Party, it ranges from, the Hillary Clinton types to the Chuck Schumer types to the, good Lord, John Fetterman types, and let's keep it real. The Bernie Sanders types. Bernie Sanders is also a Zionist and all that. Of course, and so the point I'm trying to make is all that's part of the Washington consensus anyway. So the shit livery that may come with the politics of a Bernie Sanders or the hardcore right-wing politics that would come with a Pastor John Hagee. They're all Zionists at the end of the day. And so, good for Tucker Carlson for calling out the Zionism. I can still say fuck off on all the other issues where I passionately disagree with Tucker Carlson. So now, if Tucker Carlson's having a transformation and he's turning to the left and he's sincere about it, and the verdict is out on that. We'll see what happens. If that's where he's headed, look, I'm a forgiving kind of guy, and I would say if he's turning to the left, and if he's sincere, and some of the racist shit he said in the past, I know that when he was in college, he was a member of the Jesse Helms Society. I have a problem with that, by the way, but if he's like, look, I said things in the past, I had positions in the past that I didn't agree with. and I regretted it. If he was sincere about this and everything, and he took a genuine turn into a more progressive direction or left-leaning direction, what have you. Why wouldn't you accept an ally? Especially if there's a transformation in their politics that's taking place. So that's kind of where I stand. I'll play you one more clip here, and we will find that clip right there. And here's the meat and potatoes of Mark Levin's recent statement that he made here on the show. So hold on a second here. Here he is.
I got a very strange text this morning from Tucker Carlson, 10:16 a.m. I'll read it to you for verbatim. Good morning, he writes to me. The leadership at Turning Point has asked me to debate you at their event in Scottsdale in December. I'm happy to do it, and I hope you'll agree as well. Beyond the personal insults, which I'll try to keep to a minimum, there are real and important ideological differences between us, and I think the country would benefit from an extended conversation about them. So again, I hope you'll accept. Let me know. Thanks. The guy is desperate. He's taken a hit on his podcast. He's fighting like hell for his career. He's fighting like hell for his reputation. People are awakening to what scum he actually is. And he thinks I'm going to platform him. He thinks I'm going to help him kick up his podcast ratings. What would Charlie say? What would Rush say? What would any rational response? Here it is. I wrote him the following. My family and I want nothing to do with you. What you've become, your vile libels against my faith, millions of Christians, and in my view, what you seek to do to our country. There's nothing to debate. You're a Nazi promoter. You're the modern day David Duke. I debate people with whom I disagree for a living, who are a lot smarter than you, but for whom I have some respect. I'm also disappointed in TPUSA that continues to platform you. It's not about free speech. You can be heard by millions regardless. Some unsolicited advice. Stop long enough to remember who you used to be and what you used to stand for. So, as expected, knee-jerk. For the record, I'm strongly anti-Nazi. Does he sound that way to you, America? Oh, you're going to hear more. But that's hardly the point. This seems like the perfect opportunity to rebut what you consider evil ideas and to do it to my face like a man. I think you jump at the chance, assuming you believe your positions are defensible. I'm offering the marketplace of ideas you often talk about. Is it possible you can't really defend, for example, what Israel has done to civilians in Gaza? I said, there you go. You're not feared. You're despised. Well, you're a coward. And if you change your mind, I'm here. Thanks. You little bastard. You attacked my stepson. You didn't do that face to face, did you? You stabbed him in the back while he's serving President Trump on his second tour, while he's in safe rooms with ballistic missiles passing over his head. You little bastard. Nobody's afraid of you. I'd rather debate a skunk than you.
Someone with a tiny little penis would talk like that, you know. These are the people that likes to push these right-wing voices that talk about the alpha male and all of this sort of thing, and all that, and you know, nothing alpha about Mark Levin, not even remotely so. You know, the only way he can get an erection if he sees some missile by the United States or a drone or something blowing up a brown person, you know, halfway around the globe somewhere. That'll be the only way. And maybe if that would get it up to a swollen sized cashew. So, you know, fuck Mark Levin. Any criticism I have of Tucker Carlson, pales in comparison. Is because even though his influence is declining, and Mark Levin knows his influence is declining in the conservative movement, he is still problematic because behind the scenes, people like Mark Levin runs the show. And in the MAGA movement, you can see in the MAGA movement when it comes to foreign policy, and especially in this second Trump term, where the Trump administration is headed. Now, I was naive enough to think that while I didn't vote for Trump, and I would never vote for Trump, I was thinking, well, maybe this Russian-Ukraine conflict may come to an end. There were some aspects of the foreign policy where he was slightly to the left of George W. Bush during his first term. We're not getting that. You'll hear a little bit of rhetoric now and then about being anti-war and all of this sort of thing, but no action speaks of it. He's continuing what Biden has provided foreign policy wise, except that Biden did pull the troops out of Afghanistan. I hate to defend Biden, but he did pull the troops out of Afghanistan, which was a good thing. Trump didn't. Trump, and the thing about it is that the Trump administration is listening to more of a Mark Levin than they are Tucker Carlson. But there are people naive enough within the MAGA movement to think that Tucker Carlson is the voices that they listen to in the Trump administration, that the voices like Mark Levin is just something from the past. The Trump administration is filled with neocons. Marco Rubio is he's the neocon of neocons of neocons. I mean, he got elected after the Bush-Cheney era, but he's still a Bush-Cheney era style neocon in every imaginable way. Look what's going on down in fucking Venezuela. They're trying to go and take out Venezuela. That's not being anti-war. And the bombing in Iran, it's not being anti-war. And doing next to shit when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. That's not being anti-war. It's the same old interventionist bullshit. The saying, insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, that's what it is when you listen to the Mark Levins of this world. If you're on the right and you're still listening to Mark Levin as if he's valid, you're embracing the same shit over and over again. Not just Mark Levin. If you're embracing Ben Shapiro, or God knows who else, out there on the Sean Hannity, what have you. You're still embracing the same shit over and over and over again. Bomb another country and ask questions later. Diplomacy is a weakness. Sanctions is first and foremost. Just no negotiations whatsoever. And no peace treaty, no nothing with these countries. You take what's really shitty about Ron Paul when it comes to economics, maybe, but you take what's good about Ron Paul and you reject it. That's what's happened to the MAGA movement. Now, I'm not trying to shit on Ron Paul. I respect Ron Paul, but I'm just saying they took the aspect of libertarianism that I dislike the most and embraced that, and took what was good about libertarianism, literally getting the government out of your private life, or allowing, or anti-war, being against war, that they reject. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I'm going to take a look here on the chat lines, and I got to go in a few minutes. But I wanted to discuss this feud between Mark Levin and Tucker Carlson. I'm on the left, so I don't really have a dog in this fight in one hand. But on the other hand, if I have to say there is a lesser evil, I will say I would have to say that Tucker Carlson is the one that I would have to say is the rational voice between the two. Because, he's talking about, not bombing the shit out of a whole population in Gaza. We're talking about innocent lives. Yeah. And the fuck that how the fuck can anybody sit there and justify that? I'm glad people are changing their minds on this knee jerk. You gotta go support Israel at all costs. I'm glad people kind of like wait the fuck a minute here. America's paid for the sanctions on tax products they order. That is the reason America has inflation. Yeah. Trump stole a Venezuela oil ship going to Colombia. It is about oil. Here's the thing about Trump. If Trump was America first, and Trump could have gotten that Peace Prize if he would have been some semblance of the first Trump instead of the piece of shit Trump that he is today. Basically, if he would have just been more of a peacemaker, but no, he reverted to that neocon way of the Republican Party of years past. You're not going to get no Nobel Peace Prize that way. Tucker Carlson would be a better president than Trump. Well, that's kind of like saying Donald Trump is a better president than George W. Bush. We're still in a situation. America is still bombing Somalia. Yep, they are, and that's problematic. And America has sanctions on countries you shouldn't be having sanctions on. Still bullying Cuba. How in the world can this country even entertain? I've said to a conservative friend of mine who agrees with me, who agrees that the sanctions against Cuba is stupid, that I said, look, I can even make a pro-capitalism argument for dropping the sanctions in a way that is hold on a second. Okay. Sorry about that. Had a little accident just now, but I took care of it. Can make a pro-capitalist case, can make a pro-capitalism case that's non-exploitive for dropping the sanctions against Cuba. Can't even do that. And Trump is a fucking puppet. Very true. Mark Levin's language is anti-Semitic in the sense that in several senses he is. In the sense that he's creating an environment where, although it's not justified, that some people are going to be like, well, they're going to think that he's a voice of the Jewish community. He's not. So, and thank you for urging to like and share. Christian Zionists, there are more Christian Zionists than there are Jewish Zionists and Arab Zionists like Saudi Arabia. Believe it or not, there are Islamic Zionists, like Zionists that support, Muslims who support Israel. I know that sounds crazy, but they do exist. The Christian Zionists, I would say, are probably the most dangerous people because they actually are bigoted against Jewish people as they are against Muslims. And their neoconservatism on foreign policy is combined with their fundamentalist Christian beliefs. So they're dangerous. Zionism is a political movement against humanity. Yeah, and Zionism also is the unfortunate creation of the right wing over centuries, an accidental creation of the right wing, in my view. Had the discrimination against Jewish people by the European right over the centuries, the monarchists and religious class and all of that, not taken place, maybe maybe that movement wouldn't have to exist in the first place in the eyes of the Jewish community. The Jewish Labor Bund, which was a left-wing anti-Zionist organization, a paramilitary group, and a political party to some degree in Eastern Europe, basically argue that the path toward Jewish liberation was not a state for the Jewish people, but liberation in society for their rights as equal citizens and worker empowerment. And in the United States, the Jewish Labor Bund no longer exists. And if I was Jewish, I would probably call for reforming the Jewish Labor Bund, anti-Zionist, pro-socialist, secular Jewish organization. You should check them out. Chuck Schumer is a Zionist, of course. Real Judaism is not Zionism. Very true. Very true. The anti-Zionist movement among Jewish people ranges from traditional left-wing Jews all the way to ultra-religious Orthodox Jews. It's kind of a weird mix there. Oh yeah, Dave Smith. I listen to what he says occasionally. All right. Okay. All right. Looking through here. I'm going to have to go in a minute, folks. I'm going to have to go in a short minute here because I have to be at work. But I'm just I'm scrolling through here, and I wanted to give everybody a chance. So, what else I was going to say? Thank you for showing up here tonight on the Willie Bragg Show. If you like what you heard, please press like and comment. Comment any ways you disagree with what I have to say. Feel free to share content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are, in fact, the muckrakers of our time. And remember to reject corporate media. Always reject because they have nothing to offer. Subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show, please, because we're about 20 away from 1,000 subscribers. So if you got any friends, anybody that's interested in a weirdo like me spouting what I spout, just tell them to subscribe to my program. So I guess that's what I have to say about that. And until next time, folks, free and pardon Ed Snowden, free Palestine, free healthcare for all, fight like hell for the First Amendment, and of course, when it comes to Mark Levin, well, fuck Mark Levin. Y'all take care. I will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.